Guardians, despite being at home in the land, were a home underdog against Tarek Skubal. Enter Lane Thomas, maybe one of the under-the-radar trade deadline acquisitions being dealt from the Nationals. He was huge in the ALDS.
A heavy favorite for the New York Yankees in the series. You're going to look to their best two ball players to be those MVPs. That's Juan Soto and it's Aaron Judge.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here on the show, and thanks for tuning in. We got a lot to get to here on the program today. Naturally, we'll cover the National Football League. We'll cover some Major League Baseball, and of course, we'll hear from our guest contributors on Legal Sports Report and a whole lot more. So let's dive right into it and get started with the National Football League. In case you missed it, last night it was a blowout in Pittsburgh. The Steelers beat the Jets, and the final was 37-15. A very impressive performance by Russell Wilson in this game. Naturally, you would not expect the Steelers to make this kind of move to a backup quarterback, but it ended up working out in strong fashion. And after the game, Mike Tomlin extremely impressed with how his players played, not to mention the atmosphere.
Man, nothing like primetime football at Acrisure, man. I'm just really appreciative of the atmosphere and the quality of play. Thought we got stronger as the game went on in all three phases. Man, we made plays in all three phases. Last night we talked about A-player performance, particularly on stages such as this, primetime television and so forth. And I just thought we had a lot of guys that displayed A-player characteristics. Can't say enough about young Beanie Bishop, man. That's an awesome evening, man, for him to get his first two interceptions versus a gold jacket guy like Aaron Rodgers, man. We're just appreciative of the work that was done tonight to make the night what it was. Hopefully there's growth in this as we move forward, man. But it's good to get a win. We had a couple of injuries. Mon Adams had a knee injury, wasn't able to return. Dante Jackson had a shoulder injury, wasn't able to return. We had some other bumps and bruises associated with play. But, man, I'm just really appreciative of the efforts of the men.
Steelers get the win. Russell Wilson, no doubt, will start again for them next week. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers has seen a lot of changes with his team, new coach, new wide receivers, but the results have been the same. The Jets are falling out of this thing pretty quickly. Rodgers himself did not have a great game yesterday and admitted so after the game.
It's been a rough stretch since we played so good on Thursday night. We've lost each of those four in different ways, but we got to figure it out. Obviously, we added two big-time players to the locker room. One's here, one's coming Monday. So, everything's still right in front of us. We got to somehow keep the belief in the locker room and start a run. You can't win 10 in a row unless you win the first one. So we got to be very critical of ourselves, each of us individually, tomorrow, and then come in with the right attitude all week and go to New England and get a win.
How do you get everybody to keep the belief in? It seems like a lot of the same mistakes keep
Stop
happening
listening to you guys. Number one. Number two, got to be accountable. I got to play better. That's the key.
Stop listening to the media. Okay. They tackle the players at the end of the game on Pittsburgh? I don't think so. Anyway, moving on to the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson's going to miss the rest of the season. He had an Achilles injury that he suffered in their game yesterday against the Bengals. It was pretty obvious in watching. Watson, of course, has not played well since going to Cleveland and signing that mega contract. Didn't play particularly well against the Bengals even yesterday. Dorian Thompson-Robinson came in, and he also got hurt. So really unclear as who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns. But more or less, their season is over. They're 1-6 to start the year. The Washington Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels to take them to the promised land. So far, so good. And even without Daniels, Washington clobbered the Carolina Panthers yesterday. Daniels suffered a rib injury. Looks like it could be one of those oblique type deals. He is day-to-day, maybe week-to-week. There's some speculation he could miss this coming week's game, but naturally, Washington's played very well with him. Meanwhile, the World Series is set. It's East versus West. Yankees versus Dodgers. Dodgers had no issue last night closing out the New York Mets, so they move on to the World Series, which will begin on Friday. 10-5 was the final yesterday, and ironically speaking, the American League Championship Series, National League Championship Series, although they were somewhat competitive, were completely different because the NLCS was not. I mean, whoever won the game won big. The ALCS, every game went right down to the wire. But it is a trip back to the World Series, as many predicted at the beginning of the season for LA, and Dave Roberts thankful for that opportunity.
I think they proved to themselves how tough they are. I think that when you get in a position that we were in against a division rival, against a very talented team at that point, it turns into a street fight. And it's, lose and go home, or you just fight like heck. And I think that that's what got us over the top in the DS, and also what bled into the fact, allowed us to finish these guys off in six games.
And there'll be no question that when the series does begin on Friday night, many predicting this to be the highest rated World Series of all time, with the Yankees and Dodgers squaring off. All right, back to the NFL for a minute. The 49ers just can't beat the Chiefs, right? Chiefs win the Super Bowl rematch, 28-18, the final there. Packers beat the Texans, although they did not cover that short spread, 24-22. The Vikings finally lose a game, last-second kick for Detroit. They win 31-29. And the Eagles just dominated the Giants. I believe they had 7 sacks in the game against Daniel Jones, 28-3 the final. Saquon Barkley, 176 yards rushing in that game. Meanwhile, underdogs won a little bit more yesterday, but still the favorites were really the story. Seahawks were the road underdog that ended up winning outright. Falcons were 3-point favorites. Seattle goes on the road. They win with some good offense, also some timely defense. Strip sack for a touchdown on Kirk Cousins, 34-14. The Bills were down 10-0 at the half to Tennessee. They end up winning 34-10. Josh Allen with a big game there. Colts beat the Dolphins 16-10. Dolphins quarterback Snoop Huntley was injured in the game, but Tua Tagovailoa expected to return this week. And meanwhile, the Raiders quarterback issues continue. Rams beat the Raiders. Raiders did cover the number, but there was an announcement this morning that Aiden O'Connell has a fractured finger and is going to miss weeks, not days. So Gardner Minshew, who came back in the game yesterday and threw a couple of picks, he is going to start for the Raiders, although their season seems to be going nowhere. All right, new number one in college football, of course, over the weekend. Georgia beat Texas, so that puts Oregon back at number one. Indiana, I mean, this may be one of their highest rankings in decades. As of right now, they are up to 13. They're undefeated on the season. Georgia, as we mentioned, beat Texas 30-15. Quinn Ewers really struggled in this one. Tennessee beat Alabama late 24-17. Indiana, as we mentioned, crushed Nebraska 56-7. The Hurricanes' defense has struggled, but their offense keeps rolling. They're inside the top 10, pushing for a playoff spot. 52-45 was the final there. Cam Ward has had a fantastic season for Miami. And also congrats to the New York Liberty. They end up winning the WNBA championship. Very exciting finish as they capture the title here in the 2024-25 season. All right, tomorrow night, the NBA season opens up. And, of course, we'll have that covered for you. I believe Coach Young will be with us to preview the season and also some games. Let's get to the latest off the court some last-minute signings and some injuries in the NBA before they fortify the rosters for the season. The Warriors have extended Moses Moody a 3-year contract worth $39 million. He's a role player for Golden State, plays about 17 minutes a game. He did very well for them last year. Also, Max Strus for Cleveland. He's out again, second straight year, 6 weeks with an ankle sprain. And Precious Achiuwa of the New York Knicks are already missing Mitchell Robinson to start the season. He is going to be out for an extended period of time as well. All right, so when we come back next, we'll preview tonight's Monday Night Football games. Yes, there are 2 games tonight on Monday Night Football. The NFL just loves throwing these extra games at us, so we'll preview those games coming up with Vinnie Iyer of the Sporting News. And also, don't forget, for those of you who want to learn more about our programming each and every day, you can download the SportsGrid app just by taking out your phone and downloading that QR code. It's available right now for iOS and for Android. It is the SportsGrid app. News, notes, information, picks against the spread as well. In addition, we will also recap what happened in Sunday Night Football. Can the Jets get things turned around at all this season? Vinnie Iyer will weigh in on that from Sporting News next.
That kid on the 2-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, Vinnie Iyer is here from Sporting News. The Pittsburgh Steelers, let's call what it is. At least for 1 week, it appears we were all wrong for thinking that Mike Tomlin was making the wrong move going to Russell Wilson, although it was a very shaky first half. As we bring in Vinnie Iyer, Russell Wilson definitely played better than maybe anybody thought, definitely better than I thought, especially in that second half. And it was really interesting at one point of the game, Vinny, I thought Chris Collinsworth made a good point that I really hadn't realized, is that those floating passes that Russell Wilson throws may be more conducive to those red zone issues that the Steelers have had, because he could kind of put the ball in the air maybe more than Fields. I really hadn't thought about that at all. Now, I'm not buying this one game. Let me be clear. I'm not buying this just one game that he's going to be great. I don't think so. But I thought a really good point was made there on TV last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different offense. You just didn't see this here with Justin Fields. In fact, he was thrown to George Pickens. That connection was off with Justin Fields, and that's one of the biggest reasons that Russell Wilson had won the job in the offseason, because George Pickens is a mercurial guy, but you want to keep him happy. He's your best playmaker right now. And if he can make big plays, you see what happens. It opens up the rest of the offense when you can stretch the field a little bit. They got their running game going. So that's what they're looking for, to unlock a little bit more of a legitimate downfield passing offense here. And Justin Fields, there's some maybe places they could have used him, maybe near the goal line, but then they got rolling, scoring all those touchdowns and pulling away from the Jets. So the other thing that happened, the Jets kind of were dropping everywhere defensively. They didn't have a lot there in the secondary in the end. But again, you got to credit Russell Wilson for coming out there, overcoming a little bit of a slow start, and then getting rolling here. And they get the Giants next at home, another primetime game. So I don't expect him to cool off in that matchup.
Yeah, no, Giants definitely a really good matchup. Then a tough one with the Commanders, tough one with the Ravens, and they'll be favored against the Browns. I don't know, probably 5-6 point favorites at least going into that game as well. So we will see. All right, so look, Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like he really enjoys, people like us, Vinny, talking about him, because one of his comments after the game was about not listening to the media, which was really bizarre to hear, because I don't know how that would have impacted that game at all yesterday. He obviously did not play well. And you know what? Sometimes he's going to play well. Sometimes he's not. We saw this with Brady at the end of his career. We saw it with Breeze at the end of his career. We saw it with Peyton Manning. Did not play well at the end of his career. They still won a Super Bowl. But after games, I didn't hear them taking shots at the media. I guess that's the difference here.
Yeah, last week was a shot at the wide receiver that they didn't make a play, and then they traded for Devontae Adams less than 24 hours later. So I don't know what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. I think there's some frustration settling in, and the Jets were not supposed to be this bad of a defense, right? They've had a lot of injuries. Maybe that's the thing here. Robert Saleh's influence is there. I know they have their defensive coordinator running things, but now he's distracted. He's got to run the whole team and make these decisions and not know when to get a challenge flag out of his pocket. So these are all extra things he's worrying about on top of shuffling guys in and out with injuries. So you've added an extra pressure on that defense. That puts extra pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He's got to come through and score more points. I mean, the Steelers didn't use the excuse of facing the Jets defense for not scoring. They came out, made the plays they needed to make. So, yeah, it's getting dicey here with Aaron Rodgers. Like, if they fall down to the Patriots, things are really wrong, but you figure they'll win that. But where do they go from there? I mean, you don't really feel confident that they're going to make a run at any point here to get a wild card. And I think the AFC is weak enough to do so, but the Jets just have to start playing better. Maybe they'll get well, so to speak, against the Patriots this week.
All right, so let's preview the 2 Monday night games tonight. That's right, I said two Monday night football games tonight, and with no baseball, this will be a focus. WNBA is over. NBA starts tomorrow night. The high-flying Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a challenge tonight at Raymond James Stadium. They're 3.5-point underdogs at home to the Baltimore Ravens. Look at the total there, Vinny, 49.5. So naturally, there's some expectation that we could be for a high-flying Monday night football game. Do you see it that way? Do you have any opinion on this one?
Yeah, it's obviously dangling out there with the hook that it's underdog on Monday Night Football. So I think the quarterbacks are going to have a lot of success in this game. I mean, the Ravens secondary is not very good. The Buccaneers secondary has been okay, but you can still torch them downfield. And the Bucs run defense, usually a strength that they've had, is not that. And that's not good against Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson coming in. The Bucs, will they be able to run a little bit? They went nuts last week with Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker, but the Ravens are a different story. They're the best run defense in the league. So I think if you look at the balance, the way the Ravens are going to move the ball, they'll probably get it done on the ground, try to put it away in the air, and then the Bucs are probably going to be struck throwing a lot, but they should be comfortable with that the way Baker Mayfield's playing.
All right, so now let's get to the other game between the – well, actually, let's take a look at we have some odds for Lamar Jackson, his rushing yards. Let's hit that real quick. 50-plus is minus 125. 60-plus, minus 132. And then after that, he'd have to do some things that he normally does, like once or twice a season. 70-plus yards is plus 200. I won't ask you to go beyond that. Any of those first three?
Yeah, I'll go with the 60. I think he's going to find some room to run here. I mean, again, the secondary is going to have to protect against those big plays. So that's going to leave some openings here, and they have to really focus on Derrick Henry, and that's going to help Lamar as well. And you might be headed to a third MVP at this rate.
Yeah, playing great. All right, Chargers-Cardinals is the later matchup. Cardinals were really worked over by the Packers last week, but beyond that, they've actually played pretty competitive. Chargers want to play the Harbaugh brand of football, run the ball, and win in the fourth quarter, total 44 and a half. Do you see Arizona bouncing back after last week?
What I like about the Chargers, they're very methodical. They don't tell you differently how they are. They're going to run the ball, stop the run, and try to beat them. And their defense has been fantastic over Jesse Minter. Jim Harbaugh always has the team prepared here. So, unfortunately, these are two teams that don't really have a home field advantage either way. That actually helps the Chargers being on the road here in Arizona. So, I think they take care of business. I think that's one thing. The Chargers, if they can run, have success doing that, you expect them to come through and win. And Jim Harbaugh is going to get them rolling here. I think next week they get the Saints, so it could be another opportunity just to stay hot here for Los Angeles. Looks like they're a playoff team at this point.
Yeah, don't want to watch the Saints play anytime soon, Vinny. No doubt about that. All right, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll catch up again soon. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks, Craig.
All right, when we return next, Casey Hudson will preview what's next for the San Francisco 49ers. Can they get some of their injured players back? Find out.
That kid on the two-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallized Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. What's next for the 49ers? Are the Seattle Seahawks now back after a short losing streak? That and a whole lot more. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, it was not long ago that Brian Daboll left the Buffalo Bills, went to the New York Giants, and Giants actually looked really good in his first year as head coach. Well, things have gone completely south from there, including the contract extension for Daniel Jones, who was just 14 of 21 for 99 yards yesterday. Hard to say it was all his fault with the Eagles sacking him time and time again. Sack after sack. It just went awful for the Giants, and Saquon Barkley just rubbing it in, going off for 170 yards in the game yesterday. After the game, Daboll clearly feeling very defeated and needed to get something off of his chest in order to show that, hey, there's got to be something moving forward for the Giants.
You know, got out-coached, got outplayed. Made a change in the fourth quarter when it was 28-3. We had 100 yards just to create a spark. Daniel will be the quarterback going forward. But obviously we didn't do enough offensively. Hardly had any yards, no points. Defensively, I thought we battled hard. We had 2 big runs in the first half, and then that fourth down to AJ, and then the game kind of got away from us. They ran the ball, but just not a good day all the way around. No excuses. Got to play better, coach better. You'd like to. We have some guys around him that I think can create explosive plays, and we'll just go back to the drawing board and do the very best we can to try to improve that area, which. For 2 weeks in a row, but it's been a little bit longer than that. We haven't created them, and we need to.
Got to block up front. That was the story yesterday in the game yesterday. Giants' offensive line has been miserable. Meanwhile, how about the Seattle Seahawks? After getting off to a good start this season and going through a losing streak, they got things going yesterday in a big way against the Atlanta Falcons. They were 3-point underdogs. They end up winning the game outright. Mike McDonald, in his first year as head coach of the Seahawks, credited all of the practice work last week going into the game is why they beat the Falcons.
Just proud of our guys. We said the message really after the game was team win, and I felt like we earned the win on our preparation Monday through Saturday. It was probably our best week of prep. Guys were locked in, going through, traveling east, 10 a.m. game on our time, having energy, the focus, the togetherness, all the stuff that we need in order for us to win. We did. So complimentary game. Felt like our offense responded sometimes when the Falcons were able to go down there and score. And then special teams as well. Simply excited to go watch the tape, but great win. We'll enjoy it and get ready for Buffalo next week. Yeah, it's funny. You feel it throughout the week. So hopefully that was, within the messaging, you guys felt the same way. But our guys are determined, and we grew as a football team this week, and now we have to keep it going. Okay, we got to keep stacking these days, keep stacking our prep, take what we need to learn from this game, and keep moving forward. So it's still early in the season, but it's great to get back in the win column for sure.
Yeah, Seattle has been hard to predict this season, to say the least. But needless to say, a good start for them, and we'll see if they pick up another win next week. In the interim, there is a big issue for the San Francisco 49ers. They haven't had the start that they wanted to, number one. Number two, they suffered another key injury yesterday to Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel didn't play, and of course, Christian McCaffrey has been out. So can the 49ers right the ship? Let's check in with our social media correspondent, Casey Hudson, on what's next for San Francisco.
Some great football came in on this Sunday, but a couple question marks came with it. 49ers fall to the Chiefs 28-18, but most importantly, they're tied with the Lions in futures right now for the Super Bowl at plus 850. Between their loss and between the Lions' win, are any fans out there still riding the 49ers can pull it together and have a strong postseason, most importantly, potentially see the Super Bowl again? Or for the NFC, is it all about the Detroit Lions? Let us know, because 49ers may have also accumulated a number of key injuries today as well and lost one of their top wide receivers. So is this odd going to tank as the weeks continue to prevail? And can the 49ers find a way to get strong again and have a postseason that can take them to another Super Bowl?
All right, thanks very much, Casey. Naturally, as long as the 49ers don't have to play the Chiefs, you give them some sort of shot to win a game. But it is sort of incredible, the domination that the Chiefs have had, whether they do it on offense or they do it on defense. But the 49ers did make some mistakes yesterday. Purdy did throw an interception in the end zone. Maybe the game should have been a little bit closer, but 49ers banged up, to say the least. We know that. All right, coming up next, Jim Gazzale joins us here on the show. We're just a couple of weeks away from finding out whether or not Missouri will legalize sports betting. It is a battle on both sides. We'll tell you more about that next.
That kid on the two-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallize Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. We're joined by Jim Gazzale of Legal Sports Report, and everybody over at LSR getting ready for the election coming up. Not as much for the presidency as it is for the legalization or potential legalization in Missouri. We're going to get to that story here in a minute. Could be the big sports betting story of the year. Jim, first of all, thank you again for coming on NewsWire. Good morning to you. Let's get started with the upcoming college basketball season. I know that everyone's very excited for that. Prop betting still getting a lot of attention. And I saw that there was a summit at Siena about the discussion on specifically prop betting for college athletes. It doesn't seem like there's any imminent change to this idea, but I've given my opinion on this before. I think there are so many things, Jim, that you could wager on. I think it's certainly possible that the elimination of college sports prop betting I think is upon us. It may not be in 6 months. It may not be in a year. It just seems like there's a lot of steam with this.
Yeah, and we saw a handful of states already take some individual action on outlawing college prop betting within the last year. And Congressman Paul Tonko included an outright ban on college prop betting in his Safe Bet Act that he unveiled with Senator Richard Blumenthal a couple of weeks ago. And Congressman Tonko, he's from my district, actually, up here near Saratoga in upstate New York. And he was in town last week to have a roundtable at Siena College to discuss with the players and coaches there, just to see what sort of, vitriol they're receiving and abusive messages that they're receiving on social media. So a handful of the athletes did say that they have been the victims of, death threats and abusive, threatening messages on social media in regards to prop bets that they, were ultimately unsuccessful in carrying out for these bettors. And we've really seen that sort of abuse on social media really grow and get, to be quite honest, out of hand, really. And that's why a lot of states took some action on this within the last handful of months. Like I said, Tonko's bill, the Safe Bet Act, calls for an outright ban on college prop bet at the federal level. So obviously that would require all the states to back it. But Tonko was in town, talked to a bunch of athletes and coaches, including new Siena head coach Jerry McNamara, who won a national championship with Syracuse back in 2003. And he said that this is a new sort of challenge that current student athletes are facing. he said that he did not face any of this sort of social media backlash really during his playing days. The NCAA, too, they just put out a study last week that found that about 12% of abusive comments on social media directed towards college athletes in the last couple of years were related to sports betting. Like I mentioned, a couple of states, Ohio, Louisiana, Maryland, Vermont, they took action on banning the college prop bets this year. New York, Massachusetts, it's not allowed in either of those states. That was baked into the regulations before those markets even launched. So it remains to be seen what sort of success the Safe Bet Act on its own will have. Was met with some pretty stiff criticism when it was released and formally introduced a couple of weeks ago. In addition to that college prop betting ban, it also calls for regulating sports betting at the federal level with affordability checks, deposit limits, advertising restrictions, as well as limiting the use of AI by sportsbooks. So, Craig, a lot still to come on this Safe Bet Act. This will obviously stretch into the new year. Nothing's going to happen on it before Congress breaks for the year here in the next couple of months after the election. So we'll see what Tonko does with this bill. He did tell me when I spoke to him the other day that they do plan to file this bill again in the new session once the new year begins.
All right. So speaking of elections, there's a very big one coming up, of course, for the President of the United States. But in the state of Missouri, right now, there's nothing you can do to stop the ad campaigns, whether it's on social media or on TV. A lot of opposition to the sports betting bill. A lot of people want sports betting legalized in Missouri. If you're on social media, you're seeing a lot of this, even if you don't live in Missouri as well. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to predict. It feels like, Jim, that this vote is going to be close. I know in all of the pollings that we've seen, most people in Missouri want to legalize sports betting, but it's not like an 80-20 type thing. It seems like 60-40. So no telling how this is going to go, I guess.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the last polling that I looked at recently showed about a 52% rate of support for legalizing sports betting in Missouri. So, at this point, it could be a toss-up, though we did see last week a local news article in Missouri came out that said that the opposition did remove about $1 million worth of TV ads in the lead up to this ballot question that we'll see that first week in November. So that would suggest that perhaps the opposition is seeing some polling that doesn't look like it will go in their favor. But, again, to your point, Craig, I do think it'll be a relatively close vote that, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But in the lead up to all of this, a lot of money has been thrown around. More than $44 million now has been spent both for and against collectively on this ballot question, whether or not to legalize sports betting in Missouri. In the last week, we saw Caesars throw in another $6,000 behind the several hundred thousands of dollars that they spent the week before. Caesars, of course, is in opposition of this ballot question. They are not in favor of the language that would, basically allow FanDuel and DraftKings to come into the market, while Caesars already has several land-based casinos in Missouri. Now, on the for side, for voting in favor of the Missouri sports betting legalization, the Sports Betting Alliance contributed about $100,000 to the pro campaign on this ballot question. So we'll see what ultimately happens. Like I said, the opposition did remove a lot of those TV ads last week, and that'll continue obviously until Election Day. And both big newspapers in Missouri have both endorsed the ballot question in favor of legalizing Missouri sports betting. So we'll obviously see what happens, what shakes out when this vote comes to pass in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks away from Super Tuesday. Should be a big one. All right, latest update in New York. Not surprising here. Sports betting operators just bringing in the dough here in the month of September. I mean, football is back. I mean, the Yankees in the playoffs, Mets in the playoffs. A big handle I'm seeing coming in from New York.
Yeah, over $2 billion was bet in September. They went back over the $2 billion mark. Second highest monthly handle figure ever, $2.07 billion bet in September. It was only behind, I believe, maybe January of earlier this year, where it was about 2.11 billion that came in. So second highest handle month ever. Again, the second highest revenue month ever at $204.7 million. So the sportsbooks won nearly $205 million. And as we know, New York has that industry high 51% tax rate. So the bulk of that going back to New York State. But yeah, NFL betting returns. The dollars keep flowing, over $2 billion for New York sports betting apps in September. And, we'll see how that trend continues now throughout the rest of the football season, Craig.
All right, Jim. Well, naturally, the Yankees in the World Series. My guess is it will continue. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig.
Adam Caplan's up next.
That kid on the two-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallize Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's bring in SportsGrid NFL insider Adam Caplan to review some of the games that we saw yesterday, especially a couple of close ones. That's where we will begin. Adam, welcome back. It's another Monday in the NFL. 2 games tonight, by the way. But before we get to those, let's recap some of the ones that we saw yesterday. Super exciting games between Detroit, Minnesota, and also Houston, Green Bay. Let's start off with Detroit and Minnesota. Boy, these two teams looked like each other. Very close game, back and forth. Exactly what you want to see in a fun way in the NFL. Down to the wire. Lions make a kick. 31-29. They end up winning. And, of course, they were 1.5 dogs, so they cover that as well. And what has gone on here is, sort of unprecedented, Adam, because if things continue in this direction, you're going to have 4 teams winning about 10 games at least in the NFL. But, is there a path to 4 teams in one division making it? I've never heard of that.
I'd have to look. because obviously you have wild cards and division winners. But yeah, it's hard to do. So let's talk about Detroit. This is a fascinating game because David Montgomery, who's been incredible at running back, he signed his recent contract extension. When he left the game with a knee injury, because he's an excellent pass protector, he's a little bit better than Gibbs in that area. That's a problem, and then he would later come back. But the bottom line is, it looked like they were in trouble. Minnesota was going to be the kryptonite for Jared Goff. Brian Flores' defensive scheme has been kryptonite for everyone that they've gone up against, and it really looked like it was going to be a struggle for them. But they hung in there. Goff was really not turning the ball over. They just had to hang in there, and they did that. And the other thing is, and we didn't know this, going into the game without Aiden Hutchinson, by far their best player and their best pass rusher, they found other guys who could rush the passer. Josh Pascal had a good game. They found quality rushes, Craig, from guys you probably haven't heard of. And that had to happen because when you're without your best pass rusher, and quite frankly, Hutchinson's their only true guy who could rush the passer, you're going to have to find other ways. And I give Aaron Glenn credit, their defensive coordinator, who's done a great job. Will certainly be a head coaching candidate when the cycle hits up in January. He's done a great job, former defensive back for the Jets and other teams in the NFL. So I give the Lions credit. And then with Minnesota, the one thing, though, with Sam Darnold, Craig, and this always happens with him, every once in a while you go, what were you thinking? He had a bad pick. Can't do that. It didn't cost them the game. I know some Viking fans were not happy in social media, but that's not what cost them the game. They could not get to Jared Goff when they needed to. No one over the last 3 games is more accurate than Jared Goff right now. He's been phenomenally accurate.
Yeah, he's playing great. Lions are 5-1. Vikings are 5-1. Both teams, I would suspect, are going to make the playoffs. You don't start off 5-0 and not make it unless there's a collapse. And Green Bay is just as good as those teams. The Bears may be a peg down, but if they were to win against some of these teams in their division, you could make a case for them. The NFC is going to be going down to the last game and the last quarter of the season to put teams in. I mean, there's just no other way around it. Now, as far as Houston and Green Bay is concerned, this one just was back and forth and back and forth. Late in the game, the Packers win at the buzzer. They end up kicking a field goal to win 24-22. Jordan Love played great again. Houston has done this all season long, it feels like, which is play bend but don't break defense and just good enough offense to win. So as positive it is for Green Bay, I guess I'm a little surprised that Houston hasn't looked as good as I thought they would look on offense. But also I need to recognize Nico Collins is one of the best receivers in the NFL, also not playing for Houston.
That's big because Nico Collins, Craig, he's an X receiver. That's the number one receiver. That's the big physical guy. And not having Collins, it changes their offense. Look, in a game where C.J. Stroud struggles, they still found a way to keep the game close. In fact, you and I were talking off the air. You might have made the case that they should have won the game. But for the one thing, though, that I was disappointed with Jordan Love, he did throw a couple picks. Houston's down 2 linebackers. They're down 2 key stars in the secondary. This is a game where they really should have done better than they did. And by the way, Green Bay, for all their injury issues, they've gotten healthy pretty quickly here, and that's why they've been able to turn around their season after a tough start. They're really good. You're right. This is the NFL's best division. Now, all the hype, the hype machine on Matt Eberflus, the Bears head coach, to be coach of the year, and the odds on him were pretty interesting. But look, the thing with the Bears is, and they come off their bye, it's about scheduling. They've had a great schedule. Washington, you and I have debated over that. They've had a great schedule. You know what? You play who's on your schedule. You take care of business. I give Washington credit on that. And I give the Packers credit for finding a way to win. Changing kickers, by the way, it's been fascinating. The kickers, the National Football League, all of them seemingly have big legs. But the bottom line is the Packers were able to get the win over an AFC foe, but the Texans still are the class of the NFC South.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, so the 49ers basically will never beat the Chiefs. I mean, it just seems like that. I mean, Adam, the Chiefs have like 7 identities in 5 years on offense and defense. The 49ers have had the same one, and they can't beat them. And I understand that the 49ers, Purdy threw the interception there at the end, and Debo didn't play, and Ayuk got hurt. McCaffrey, we're learning, is a lot more valuable than we thought at the beginning of the season. Is not a plug and play at that play. They don't have anyone. Adam, I say this every week. I mean, Mason's played great. No one catching the ball out of the backfield. The Purdy checkdowns, they're completely gone from the 49ers, but they're never going to beat Kansas City, I guess.
All right, couple things here. You mentioned, they're not having McCaffrey. Although I would tell you one thing, Isaac Guerrero, the 4th round rookie out of Louisville, I'm told that He had actually some of the best hands for this draft, but they just don't throw it to him. It's a problem. You take out McCaffrey, Ayuk with the suspected torn ACL. Kyle Shanahan talked about it. Just so you understand, the medical staff will almost know immediately if the ACL has been impacted. They could do a stress test, and they'll know if the ACL is loose. So that it's almost certain that it's going to be that, but the MRI would confirm that today. Then Debo leaves with the illness. Shanahan did say after the game that he did go into the game with an illness. Juwan Jennings, their third receiver, didn't play, and Brock Purdy forced the football. They've got problems now. Now, they happen to be in a division that no one's running away from it. I know Seattle had a great win in Atlanta. No one's running away from it. The Niners will be in there in the end. They'll get Debo back next week from his illness. They'll get Jennings back. They'll be okay. But you nailed it. The engine cannot run without McCaffrey. They're a completely different team without him. No question.
I mean, Purdy is a good passer, but he's a lot better when that little guy McCaffrey is out of the backfield and he could just dump it off and that guy runs for like 40 yards. I think people forgot about that. No disrespect to Mason, by the way, but he's played great, just not the same guy. All right, Adam, enjoy the games tonight. I know you'll be busy again on Monday Night Football here with two of them. I'll see you again later in the week. Thanks again.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back to wrap it up.
That kid on the two-point conversion play was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and the kid threw it about 15 rows over his head.
People crystallize Georgia and Alabama. They put them on the shelf above everyone else, and they're just not there this year. I thought the kid Beck was great on Saturday, but they barely beat Mississippi State, who is porous.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Before we get out of here, let's check in on the end of the season for the New York Mets, end of the line for Deshaun Watson, and an extension, sort of, at least from a sports card company, for Juan Soto. It's time now for some last licks. Hey, credit to the Mets. Had a really good season. Not a lot of projections for them to get to the postseason, let alone go to the National League Championship Series and battle the Los Angeles Dodgers, who just were more talented, especially on the offensive side, clobbering the ball constantly throughout the series. Mets did well. Question for the future, though, surrounding the New York Mets is essentially their biggest power hitter, Pete Alonso, who was drafted and has always been a member of the New York Mets. He is a free agent. as of the end of the World Series and can sign with anyone. And as of now, it seems a little unclear as to whether or not Pete is headed back to New York. He talked about the end of the line last night.
I don't know. I'm really proud of what I was able to accomplish here. I feel like I laid it out there every day. I play my heart out every day. I leave it all out there. No matter what time of year, no matter what day it is, I pride myself in being accountable and being out there working hard and just doing whatever it takes to win. I don't know. I'm really proud of what I've accomplished. I'm really proud of this group. I mean, this is really special to be able to. I mean, yeah, I'm just really proud of this team. I'm really proud of this organization. I've loved being a New York Met. I love representing the city of New York. I love representing Queens, and I mean, this has really been special.
Kind of hard to say what the future will hold for Pete Alonso. He's going to be a coveted free agent, and it's sort of unclear as to where the Mets are headed. Remember, they have a new president of baseball operations in David Stearns, a team 2 years ago that gave a contract extension out to Brandon Nimmo and $40 million to Verlander and $40 million to Scherzer, went the opposite direction this offseason. Which direction will they go this offseason? Still remains to be seen if Pete is back in a Mets uniform. Meanwhile, the future extremely unclear in Cleveland at quarterback, especially for Deshaun Watson, who is now out for the year with a Achilles injury. You saw it happen in real time yesterday on the field. It was pretty obvious that was going to be the case. And if you were watching the game on television, like most of us, or at least watching on the Red Zone, you heard the boos rain down. A lot of Browns players coming out after the fact saying that the fans shouldn't have booed. That would include Jameis Winston, who talked a lot about that after the game yesterday. Also from Myles Garrett, their great defensive player, and maybe not surprisingly, a guy from the Ohio area in LeBron James, who went on social media yesterday and said also he didn't like the boos coming down for Watson. And, you know, I understand the player's sentiment and probably should never be booing a player that gets hurt on the field. I also get that as well. There's a lot of frustration, though, going on with Cleveland fans right now with watching their team play and just sort of unclear as to why Deshaun Watson continues to play at quarterback at such a low level, and they don't give anybody else an opportunity to play. So you understand that frustration, but you also understand the players' frustration at the same time to see one of their guys, especially Winston, Garrett, being upset too. Not an easy answer for this. You buy a ticket, doesn't give you a right to be an idiot, but it does give you a right to kind of say what you want, unfortunately, as a fan at a game. Watson's story still the finish of it in Cleveland to be determined. Juan Soto with one of the biggest home runs in Yankees history. They end up beating the Cleveland Guardians. They're headed to the World Series. Last two MVPs the same year to face off in the World Series, Cabrera and Posey. We're going to have that going into this year. Juan Soto has also donated, or sort of donated, his batting gloves from the game. And you're going to be able to purchase these on Topps through one of the Topps Now cards. Now, again, to be clear, I've said this before about Topps Now. For those of you who buy cards and go online to buy this stuff, it is extremely hard to get some of these relics, okay? You go on, you buy the card for $10 or whatever it is, odds are against you. But if you want to take a shot off that home run, looks like Soto's giving them to Topps, and maybe has a contract with them, I'm not sure. Chance to buy them, piece of them, I guess is probably fair to say, memorabilia world. By the way, Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 ball ends tonight for auction. Over $2 million, by the way. Still up right now. We'll find out tomorrow how I ended up going for it. No, not for me. Early line coming up next from 12 to 3, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast. So make sure you stay tuned. 2 Monday Night Football games tonight. Pro Football Today, in-game live. We have you covered. Thanks again to Jim Gazzale from Legal Sports Report. Adam Caplan, of course, from SportsGrid. Vinnie Iyer from Sporting News. Luke on the directing. Frank on the producing. I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., for our next edition of NewsWire. See you then.